Hello, BookTube. It's the return of Celestial Steve. But I wanted to make a Friday Reads video. I'm sorry about all these 5 video days, but once I get talking to you, I don't like to stop. And it's Friday. It's the beginning of a weekend, one of the last weekends of summer here in the Northern Hemisphere. And that Friday is when we all make Friday Reads videos, and I love watching them. Absolutely love watching videos in which people are making sometimes overambitious plans. This is when they talk about what's actually on their nightstand, what's actually on the launch pad, not things I'm dreaming of or something down the road or, oh, I wish I did, but these are the next things in the rotation. I love that. And I like to do a variation of that myself. My own reading is a pretty frenetic pace, but even so, Friday Reads definitely apply to me. And I have, as usual, I have 6 books to show you. And 2 of them I have not read. And then 4 of them I have read, and I'll be dealing with them this weekend anyway, a couple of them. You'll see what I mean. The first one that I haven't read is, I believe, September release. Yes, this is coming out at the end of September. I already know that I'm going to love it, so it's just a question of reading it and finding out how much. This is a Heartbreaker Bay novel by Jill Shalvis. This is the latest one, Wrapped Up in You. I've got the weird backlighting here, so you might not get the full glory of the cover, but I'll list all the books down below. I never fail to do that. This comes out in the end of September, and let's see. It's love, trust me, is how the pub sheet begins. After a lifetime on the move, Ivy Snow is an expert in all things temporary. Schools, friends, and way too many Mr. Wrongs. There went one of them now. Now that she owns a successful taco truck in San Francisco and an apartment to call home, Ivy's reinvented life is on solid ground, and she's guarded against anything that can rock it. Like the realities of the past she's worked hard to cover up, and especially Kel O'Donnell. Too hot not to set off alarms, he screams temporary. If only his whispers weren't so delightfully naughty and irresistible. Okay, well, there they are. That doesn't look naughty or irresistible, and that does not look temporary. But we shall see. I have read almost all the books in the Heartbreaker Bay series. Here we have the Step Back has. I wish all romance novels did this. The Step Back gives you the visuals of what they have been, and I've read quite a few of these. I don't think I had the just last one, Playing for Keeps. I don't think that Avon ever sent me that one. But I've read almost all these others, and one of Accidentally on Purpose was the first one, and that was terrific. And Hot Winter Nights was from last year, I believe, or very early this year. That was a Heartbreaker Bay novel. And we mentioned before, location series novels tend to maximize the sameness, not in a bad way, but they want you to feel like you're coming home to come to this location. Familiar names rotate around in the background. Familiar places, shops and streets and physical locations become fixtures in these series in a way that is meant to enhance the reading experience. You have to get on the right wavelength for a location-based romance series. And I love that. I love that aspect of them. I wish that I could find one that took place in Iowa that wasn't about the Amish. but when you get a location-based romance series like this, one of the things that tends to want to happen is that they tend to be sort of the same in terms of, I don't want to say worth, because Jill Shalvis can't write a bad book. But if you know what I mean, there's a certain amount of emotional payoff that stays level. And the point that I'm trying to make is that every once in a while, even in a series in which that kind of level reading experience is very much a conscious design of the author, there will be something that spikes. There will be a home run. And that definitely applies to Hot Winter Nights. Hot Winter Nights was the 2 books back from this one, and was better than all the other books that I read in this series by a wide margin. Sometimes you can tell. Sometimes a novel, a narrative just feels on fire. So we will see. I love the series anyway. So that's one of the ones that I haven't read and that I will be reading this weekend. And then this next one is also a September release. I am getting real serious about September. I was playing fast and loose with September while I was reading, the latest wastrel books promising me the moon from November and October. But no, September is a monster month. I need to buckle down and read September. And this one is coming out In early September, September 10th, it is by Stanley Greenberg, and it is called R.I.P. GOP, How the New America is Dooming the Republicans. The Republican Party thought they had reached the mountaintop with the election of Donald Trump in November of 2016. He lost the election by 3 million votes. When in fact, thanks to the extremism of the Tea Party movement Trump leads, the GOP is headed off a cliff. And in 2020, they will face a shattering fall. Trump's bravado was really a house of cards that is crumbling down. What they have done is fight the social breakthroughs that made America more free and equal, are fully explained in celebrated Democratic pollster Stanley Greenberg's new book. There shouldn't be any such thing as a celebrated Democratic pollster, since Stanley Greenberg and everybody else in the world in 2016 was saying there's no chance that Donald Trump can win the election. Polling is irrelevant. Pollsters are hucksters. But let's go on. The problems for the Republicans stem from their successive fights against a new America, one that is more racially diverse, immigrant, younger, and millennial, non-religious, and with fewer traditional families and male breadwinners, an America with more working families and women demanding respect. The Republican Party has pitted a southern and rural America against the dynamic metropolitan areas that believe in a multicultural America. The GOP has tried to stop progress on civil rights, voting rights, and women's rights, and sadly, affordable care. Most of all, it has denied that America is an immigrant country. As Greenberg explains in R.I.P. GOP, the 2010 midterm victories were produced by their total war against Barack Obama and everything he represented. The triumph of the Tea Party movement produced a decade of dysfunction and polarization, and also produced President Trump. Among the key issues that Greenberg outlines is what is the root of America's deep division and why this division cannot be sustained. What is the new Republican Party really means at their core, and why the party won't challenge President Donald Trump. Getting to the heart of individual voters via open-ended discussions supported by polling data. How Republican base voters are not united behind President Trump. That the media is wrong in that belief, and that pro-Trump passion of Tea Party Republicans and evangelicals might be strong for Trump, but there is a tremendous frustration aimed at the president from moderate Republicans, secular conservatives, and observant Catholics. Okay. All right. This comes out. The date on it is September 10th. I don't know how strict that will be. That argument that pundits make on cable news for Rachel Maddow, they get on, they get paid a fee, they come on, and they say that argument that America is changing, that the face of America is multiracial, it's multi-ethnic, it's extremely liberal in terms of its views of what society should do for its members. It's no longer a traditional 9-to-5 job. It's no longer a traditional one-company career with a pension. It's no longer any of those things. And it very much rejects the old 1950s-style mind frames that gave birth to that older kind of American set. That America looks different, demographically, sexually, in a whole bunch of social ways. And that therefore, the Republican Party is doomed, and is appealing more and more stridently to a smaller and smaller base of voters, and that base is doomed by its own mortality, that they will age out and die. And it sounds great on paper, but pundits have been getting on TV and cable news shows in front of Rachel Maddow and her 5 predecessors and saying that exact same thing for 35 years. so it is obviously false. And it's falsified by a number of things. First, I don't think that this guy or any other pollsters or pundits understand what the actual division is in America. If they're hauling out the Tea Party or ultra-conservative Republican circles as a sort of a gauge of the actual split that is happening in this country, they're way, way, way off base. The actual split in this country has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with the kind of people you don't like. And you have now calcified the kind of people you don't like. You don't care what their politics are, and you also don't care if the politics of the kind of person you like who's running for office will actually hurt you. It doesn't matter. It's tribal, not political. But we'll see what this author has to say. But the problem here is twofold. One, in the 8 years that Barack Obama was president and was paying attention to other things, the Republicans were gerrymandering the hell out of this country. there are huge swaths of this country now where you can walk all day long, you can knock on doors until your knuckles bleed, trying to find someone who is going to vote Republican, and none of them will. And that district or whatever will still return Republican representatives to Congress in overwhelming numbers, because there are huge swaths of this country that have been so gerrymandered that they could return 70% Democrat and still elect a Republican. That's thing number one. And thing number two is the people that have been described there, the multi-ethnic, the socially progressive, the young, the open-minded, don't vote. They are all of those things, and that's great, but they don't vote. On election day, they don't go to the polls. They don't vote. And they're opposite numbers. The dead GOP members, the people that believe in all that other stuff and don't believe in any social progression or want it curtailed, or the people who aren't those progressives, do vote in huge numbers. So once again, on election day in 2020, 17% of progressive Democrats are going to vote, and 71% of very much not progressive Republicans are going to vote. And that means, that plus gerrymandering means, we will see. I will let this guy give me a chance to convince me. I haven't read his book, and that's the whole point of reading it, is to see if he can convince me. We'll see what kind of points he makes. And then I want to show you the 4 books that I have already read. And it's not a done deal, because I'm going to be going at them again. One of them is a done deal because I just finished it. I'm not going to reread it again anytime soon, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's from probably 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and it's by Sheila Walsh, and it's called The Pink Parasol. It's a Signet Regency romance sent to me by one of you. One of you was at your local bookstore or your local library sale, noticed that there were a ton of, it's got this symbol right here, a ton of Regency romances, Signet Regency romances, and remembered that you know a crazy old coot who likes them. So this person just scooped up a whole bunch of them and mailed them to me. I think I opened them on camera, and this is one of them. And it is delightful. It was so good. It was just so good. There's an enormous and imposing woman, a noblewoman who lives in London, Lady Wigmore. And she has a goddaughter, Lady Cicely, who is the daughter of an impoverished nobleman who is in London squandering the family money and is deeply in debt and is running around with the wrong kind of people. But his daughter is a complete innocent. And when I first started the book, I thought, okay, when you mean complete innocent, what you mean is Elizabeth Bennet style innocent. And Lady Cicely is not that kind. She actually is innocent. Sweet, completely unfeigned, completely non-artificial. And Lady Wigmore realizes that the only hope that her goddaughter has to make any kind of start in life, considering the botch that her father has made of things, is if she marries money. So she has to come to London, and she has to have a successful season. She has to have wealthy gentlemen propose marriage to her. But Cece is completely unfinished. She is a complete innocent. She doesn't know anything about the ways of the world. So Lady Wigmore orders her nephew, whose name is Mr. Anstruther. He is extremely wealthy. He's unbelievably handsome, and he is a sort of a Corinthian in Regency terms. He is a languid, seemingly louche society creature, a serial society creature. And Lady Wigmore orders him to take this girl in hand and give her some societal polish. Put her, when she's seen around London in his company, suddenly her star will rise. Her stock will go up, and that will increase her chances of netting a husband. And he agrees. He worships his aunt, so he agrees. And the two have an awkward first meeting, and then they have an awkward second meeting. But gradually she does start to take his advice, and if you have ever read a Regency romance, you know what's going to follow from the premise that I just described. And I did too, because the point of Signet Regency romances is not that they reinvent the wheel. The point is not to surprise you as a reader. The point is to delight you as a reader. An innocent, palate-cleansing delight. I knew on page 30 what was going to happen in the course of this book. I was not disappointed, and it was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So that's the first of the 4 that I've already read, and it's just a done thing. Now this next one, I have already read it, but I just got the 25th anniversary reprint, so I will be rereading it. I haven't read it in 25 years, and a lot of you will know this book. This is by Anne Lamott. This is Bird by Bird. her book about writing, which is coming out in a 25th anniversary edition, a very pretty thing. I'm sure that a lot of you writers probably have this book on your shelf. This comes out in early September. Let's see here. For a quarter century, more than 1 million readers, scribes, and scribblers of all ages and abilities have been inspired by Anne Lamott's lively, big-hearted, homespun advice. Advice that begins with the simple words of wisdom passed down from Anne's father, and who was also a writer, in an iconic passage that gives the book its title. I want to read you that passage. 30 years ago, my older brother, who was 10 years old at the time, was trying to get a report on birds written that he had 3 months to write, which was due the next day. We were out at our family cabin in Bolinas when he was at the kitchen table close to tears, surrounded by binder papers and pencils and unopened books on birds, immobilized by the hugeness of the task ahead. Then my father sat down beside him, put his arm around my brother's shoulders, and said, "Bird by bird, buddy, just take it bird by bird." An essential volume for generations of writers, young and old, Bird by Bird is a modern classic, and the folks at Anchor Books decided to reprint it for the occasion. I think that's wonderful. I haven't read this in a long time. I usually look with a little bit of a fishy eye on writing guides, but I remember liking this one more than most of them. So that's what I mean. I have already read this, but I'm going to read it again this weekend. Then another one. This is another one that I've already read. Just to put it mildly, I know it quite well. But it's been a while since I reread it, and I was, as usual, as I often do, I was in the other room. I was in the little book room, and I was sort of wandering along my Penguin wall. I don't film in that room. I haven't filmed in that room in a while during the summer. So those of you who are new to the channel might not remember. You might not have seen that wall, especially if you are guarding your mental health by not watching my 2,700 videos. If you haven't watched those, if you're just watching me day to day, and with 5 videos a day, that's plenty, then you might not know what I'm talking about. But in the other book room, in my little monk cell in there, one whole wall is Penguin Classics. And I love them. I love Penguin Classics dearly. I am a fanatical fan of Penguin Classics, and I always have been. And they are my oldest literary friends. And I often just wander around that wall. And I had a reason for this one, though. This wasn't just a random pick. But the book that I pulled down is Apologia Pro Vita Sua by John Newman, which is his, let me tell you what Penguin says about it here. Having inspired and led the Oxford or Tractarian movement before he abandoned Anglicanism for the Church of Rome, Newman regularly found himself the target of virulent anti-Catholic prejudice in Victorian England. The Apologia was his autobiographical response to a public attack by the novelist Charles Kingsley, who wrote The Water Babies. Some of you will have that book, on his personal integrity. With it, he not only convinced a suspicious public of the sincerity of his beliefs, but he also produced a literary masterpiece, which has often been compared to St. Augustine's Confessions. I think that comparison is apt. I absolutely love this book. And it's a deep and tortured exercise in autobiography. It isn't just Newman hitting the hits, hitting the greats. It's like the Confessions of St. Augustine in that you are reading it feeling as though you are digging in with this person to his own life and thinking. And excursions like that are rare, even in autobiographies, and they are, to me, gripping. Another example, in addition to Augustine's Confessions, would be The Education of Henry Adams. And the reason why I'm reading this book, I'm pouring through it and really hunkering down with segments of it. The reason why is because of The Education of Henry Adams. Because The Education of Henry Adams as a book was on my mind when I finished my first read-through of the book that I will be grappling with the most this weekend, which reminded me in some ways of The Education of Henry Adams, and also reminded me of the Apologia Pro Vita Sua. And that is this. This is the new book by Samantha Power, who wrote A Problem from Hell. This is her new book, The Education of an Idealist. It isn't even an ARC. This is just the pages blocked together at Kinko's. And I was very delicate on my first read-through. I read these things to get an impression first, just a general world impression of the book. But I am very happy to report that I will be reviewing this book for the Christian Science Monitor, and I'm going to hunker down with it because it's deep. It felt a lot like I was reminded when I was reading it of both The Education of Henry Adams, and then I pulled down Henry Adams from the Penguin Wall. But then I was reminded of that but I was reminded of the Apologia Pro Vita Sua, so I pulled that down. So that is the explanation for this. But let me tell you a little about this book. Some of you will have read Problem from Hell, which won her the Pulitzer Prize, and this has blurbs from Madeleine Albright, Doris Kearns Goodwin, President Obama. Let's see here. At a time of upheaval and division, Samantha Power offers an urgent response to this question, which is, what can one person do? And a call for the clearer eye, the kinder heart, and the more open and civil hand in our politics and daily lives. This book brings a unique blend of suspenseful storytelling, vivid character portraits, and shrewd political insight. It traces Power's critiques of American foreign policy, her distinctly American journey from immigrant to war correspondent to presidential cabinet official. After President Obama was elected president, Power went from being an activist outsider to a government insider, navigating the halls of power while trying to put her ideals into practice. She served for 4 years as Obama's human rights advisor, and in 2013 he named her U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, the youngest American to assume the role. A Pulitzer Prize-winning writer, Power transports us from her childhood in Dublin to the streets of war-torn Bosnia, to the White House Situation Room, and the world of high-stakes diplomacy. And I read this book. This comes out September 10th. And I read it, and now that I have read it, I read it first just for first impressions, just to see what my thoughts on it were. And now I need to grapple with it. Now I need to understand it and tear it apart. I need to tear it apart, not in a negative way, but you know what I mean. Any of you have ever reviewed a book, I have to master it, is what I'm saying. I have to grapple with it and master it. So that's going to be a large part of this weekend. But that does it for my Friday reads. I'll probably be reading more books than this. I mean, Bird by Bird is a reread. The Apologia Pro Vita Sua is a reread. I'm already hunkered down in it. The Pink Parasol I've already read. Jill Chavez will not take long. R.I.P. GOP will not take long. This will be the bulk of my weekend, but there'll probably be other things as well. So that's what we have. I have no reason to hold this at spine because you can't see it. This is The Education of an Idealist. Then we have R.I.P. GOP. We have the Penguin Classic of Apologia Pro Vita Sua. We have Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think I'm probably going to enjoy it a lot more than I did the first time. We have The Pink Parasol, a Signet Regency that I just love. And also Wrapped Up in You, the new Jill Chavez, which is a September book that I'll be reading right away. And the only other things that will add to my Friday reads for today are the things that I just got them at Barnes & Noble, and that is the latest Analog and Asimov's. These square-bound science fiction periodicals that are just full of short stories. They're just full of them. And in every issue of Analog and Asimov's, I find at least one story that's just terrific, just electrically good, and usually more than one. So these are on my reading docket as well. I'm not going to let them sit around. And there you have it. That is my Friday reads plus the bean. And as usual, I want to know what you're working on this weekend. Let me know what's on your launch pad. What are your fond dreams? and I'll wrap this up for now, but I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.